Okay, before we properly dive in today, we need to share an important note about AI history of Western philosophy. As you probably know, AI-generated content, and yeah, specifically this podcast, can sometimes confabulate. It can present ideas as fact when they're, well, maybe not quite solid. Our subject is philosophy, absolutely, but we aren't philosophers ourselves. Our mission here at AI History of Western Philosophy, really beyond pointing you to the original sources, is to experiment with philosophy as material, to see if we can generate some new possibilities for thought. Just keep that in mind as you listen. All right, welcome, curious minds, to AI History of Western Philosophy. Today, we're setting off on a, frankly, fascinating journey. It's going to take us all the way from ancient Greek rhetoric right up to the algorithms, the ones shaping our digital world right now. Okay, let's unpack this. Our goal today is to explore how some really old insights into persuasion, particularly from the Sophist Gorgias, can maybe shed some light on the whole complex landscape of modern misinformation.
We'll try to connect these historical threads with some pretty radical philosophy from Deleuze and Guattari. The idea is to really get why certain narratives take hold, and how our digital environments, maybe, are actually producing reality, not just reflecting it. And we've got some great source material to help us out. Critical analyses of Gorgias' encomium of Helen, contemporary research on cognitive biases, social media algorithms, and those philosophical texts on what they call desiring production.
Yeah, what's fascinating here is you might be thinking, okay, a Greek sophist, what's he got to say about my news feed, my, daily scrolling? But as we'll see, the insights are actually incredibly profound. They hit really close to home. Wow. This isn't just like some dry academic exercise. It's really about giving you the tools, hopefully, to navigate this world that's just saturated with information, right? To maybe understand why certain ideas seem to stick, why they gain traction, and how these big systems, not just, individual people, are shaping what we believe and maybe even how we feel. It's about getting that knowledge, quickly, but also thoroughly, and maybe, just maybe, having a few aha moments about your own experience online.
Okay, so let's start way back. 5th century BCE, Greece, the Sophists. We often hear about them as, tricksters, maybe even charlatans, using language just to win arguments or make money.
Yeah.
But Gorgias of Leontini, he was something else entirely, much more radical. He presented this vision of language, of logos, not as just a simple tool for conveying truth.
Right, not just a neutral vessel.
Exactly. But as a material force, an effective force, something that physically impacts you. He famously called it a drug, a pharmakon, which is such a loaded term.
Absolutely.
Had the power to heal or, well, to poison. Understanding Gorgias, really getting what he was saying, gives us this foundational framework for thinking about persuasion, even today. It feels startlingly modern.
And his showpiece, the work that really puts this on display, is the encomium of Helen. Now, on the surface, it looks like a defense of Helen of Troy. The face that launched 1,000 ships, the woman everyone blamed for the Trojan War. Gorgias says he wants to rescue her from ignorant calumny, basically clear her name.
Okay, seems like a tough job.
Right. But the real genius isn't just defending Helen, it's the way he does it. It's what's called epidictic oratory. It's a display piece, a demonstration of the rhetorician's, overwhelming craft, his power.
So, choosing the most hated woman in Greece was deliberate.
Precisely. By picking someone so universally condemned, Gorgias created the perfect stage to show off the sheer force of his art. It's less about Helen, really, and more an encomium for logos itself, for speech. And look how he structures it. It's methodical. He basically says, look, Helen left for Troy for one of 4 possible reasons. Let's go through them. First, maybe it was the will of the gods, or fate. He dismisses that pretty quickly. God's stronger than man, so if the gods willed it, she's not to blame.
Makes sense.
Second, maybe she was taken by physical force, abducted. Again, if that happened, the abductor is the criminal, Helen's the victim. She deserves pity, not blame.
Don't say straightforward so far.
But then reason 3, she was persuaded by speech, by logos. And reason 4, she was overcome by love, by eros. And this is where it gets really interesting. He puts persuasion by speech and the power of love on the same level as divine will or physical violence.
Wow, okay, so words are as powerful as being physically carried off.
That's exactly his radical claim. He's saying speech isn't just, sharing ideas. It's a coercive force. It compels the soul.
This is where it gets really interesting. That idea of compulsion. Gorgias didn't just see logos as a tool, like a hammer you use. He called it a dunastēs megas.
A mighty power, or a powerful lord.
Exactly,
Yeah.
A mighty power. He said it achieves the most divine works by means of the smallest and least visible form. I mean, think about that phrase, smallest and least visible form achieving divine works. It's counterintuitive.
It really is.
And its power wasn't about logic, about making a good rational argument. No, its essence was its ability to produce these visceral, almost physical effects on the soul, the psyche of the listener. It's an effective force. It bypasses your rational mind, your deliberation, and hits you directly, emotionally, physically. And yeah, that claim about coercion is just mind-blowing. If Helen was persuaded by speech, he argues her culpability is erased. Why? Because she was, in effect, compelled. He says it explicitly. Just as if she'd been carried away by force.
It's not a metaphor for him.
No, he really means it. Speech, he argued, compels the soul that is persuaded both to obey the things said and to consent to the things done. The soul, when it's under the spell of powerful logos, has no more choice than, say, a body being physically overpowered.
And his proof.
Poetry. He points to poetry, or speech having meter. He says, look at how audiences react. They shudder with terror, shed tears of pity, and yearn with sad longing.
You feel it.
You feel it. The soul, he says, affected by the words, feels as its own an emotion aroused by the good and ill fortunes of other people's actions and lives. So all speech, for Gorgias, has this latent power to manipulate emotions directly, to put a stop to fear, remove grief, create joy, and increase pity. It's like a direct control panel for human feeling. And this connects to a really different idea of consciousness than, say, Plato's later. For Gorgias, thinking wasn't just happening up in the head, detached. He talked about enworlded thinking, located physically, in the gut, the chest.
Right, in the body itself. The soul wasn't separate.
Exactly. The soul, psyche, is a material part of the body. And because it's material, it's susceptible to material influence. He even suggests logos has an invisible body, kind of poetic, right, that literally engraves images onto the mind, physically changing it.
Like a drug physically alters your body chemistry.
Precisely, which is why that drug metaphor is so central. It's not just that speech tricks the mind, it physically affects the soul, because the soul itself is physical material. This is so different from the later idea of a purely rational, immaterial soul.
And that brings us squarely to the pharmakon, that core metaphor. It's worth lingering on this. He says it straight out. The power of speech over the constitution of the soul can be compared with the effect of drugs pharmaca on the bodily state.
Now, people often simplify this, right? They just think, oh, speech is poison.
Yeah, that's the quick takeaway. But it's much more nuanced. It's about profound ambivalence. Any powerful substance that alters you is ambivalent. Gorgias clarifies this immediately. Just like drugs can put an end either to the disease or to life, speech can induce grief, pleasure, or fear, or, again, by means of a certain evil persuasion, drug, and bewitch the soul.
So it can heal or harm. Cure or curse.
Exactly. Its nature isn't fixed. It depends entirely on the application, the dosage, the context, the skill of the person wielding it. The master rhetorician, in this view, is like a master pharmacologist. They know how to mix the words, the logos, to produce a very specific desired effect in the listener's soul. And Jacques Derrida, much later, obviously, dives deep into this pharmakon concept.
Oh, yeah, Derrida loved this word.
He really did. He shows it's even more complex. Pharmakon doesn't just mean remedy and poison. It can also mean charm, spell, recipe, paint, even artificial color. It embodies this fundamental undecidability. It's the locus and the play, as Derrida puts it, where opposites like good devil, true, false aren't just opposed, but actually produced and can even flip.
Okay, so it's the very space where these distinctions become unstable.
Precisely. And here's another fascinating layer Derrida points out. The connection to the pharmakos.
The scapegoat.
The ritual scapegoat, yes. In ancient Greece, this was often a person ritually burdened with the community's sins or pollution and then driven out or killed to purify the city.
Right.
So who's the scapegoat of the Trojan War? Helen. She's the pharmakos. And Gorgias's encomium, his speech, that's the pharmakon, the rhetorical drug, the remedy being applied in this public rhetorical performance to cleanse Helen, the pharmakos, of her blame.
Wow. So the speech itself is a kind of ritual purification.
It's a pharmaceutical performance, creating a new, praiseworthy image of Helen, transforming her in the public eye through the power of logos.
Okay, so logos is this incredibly mighty power, this ambivalent drug. But Gorgias wasn't saying it's all-powerful, right? There were limits.
Yes,
and this is crucial, often missed. He was very careful to define the limits of rhetoric's power. It only works, he says, in the domain of belief or opinion, what the Greeks called doxa. It doesn't work on knowledge episteme.
That's a key distinction.
Huge. He described doxa as slippery and insecure, sphaleraikai ababaios, like malleable wax. Most people, he argued, rely on opinion as their counselor to the soul, precisely because they lack direct experience or certain knowledge. And it's this slippery, insecure, malleable nature of doxa that makes the soul susceptible to persuasion. Episteme, on the other hand, true knowledge. It's like unbendable metal. Stable, consistently true. Rhetoric can't touch it.
You can't persuade someone out of what they truly know through direct experience.
Exactly. You can't convince me I didn't just see the sunrise, right? No amount of eloquent speech changes that direct knowledge. And crucially, logos can't produce knowledge where it doesn't exist. It can only shape belief, opinion. It creates doxa, not episteme.
And this limit comes from his deeper philosophy, right?
Yeah.
His skepticism.
Absolutely. It stems directly from his radical skepticism, most famously laid out in his work on the non-existent, where he basically argues 3 points. 1, nothing truly exists in an objective, independent way. 2, even if it did, we couldn't really know it. 3, and even if we could know it, we couldn't perfectly communicate that knowledge to someone else.
Which leaves us where, exactly?
It leaves objective reality as ultimately inaccessible to us humans. So this reframes Gorgias. He's not post-truth in the modern sense of like denouing known facts.
No, he's more like pre-truth.
Exactly. He's operating from a position where objective, certain facts were never truly accessible in the first place. In that kind of world where episteme is out of reach, what do we have left to guide us?
Only doxa, opinion, belief.
And probability. Acus, what seems likely, what's persuasive. And in that world, rhetoric, the art of shaping doxa, becomes the single most powerful, most essential human skill for navigating society, for getting anything done. So what does this all mean? What's the takeaway from Gorgias? It means understanding how language shapes us, influences us, maybe even compels us. It's not about finding some way to escape its power. That's impossible. It's about mastering its navigation, recognizing its profound ambivalent power in constructing the reality we inhabit. But can we just take this ancient toolkit and apply it directly to, say, Twitter bots and Facebook algorithms?
Oh, well, that's where things get complicated, as we'll see next, right? So Gorgias gives us this incredible lens, this way of thinking about language as a material, effective force. It's tempting, really tempting to just map it directly onto modern misinformation.
Yeah, it seems to fit so well initially.
It does. But applying his model directly, it runs into problems pretty quickly. Think about how viral falsehoods spread today. It's usually not because of one single, incredibly skilled orator crafting a perfect encomium.
No, it's much messier.
More chaotic. Exactly. It's propelled by exploiting psychological vulnerabilities we all have, by algorithmic amplification on a massive scale, and by totally new forms of rhetoric, think memes, image macros, short videos. So we need to kind of systematically deconstruct these new mechanisms. We can still use Gorgias, but we need to see where the parallels break down and where the digital age introduces something fundamentally different.
That's a really important shift. You mentioned the agent of persuasion.
Yeah.
Gorgias was all about the speaker's techno, their art, their skill.
The virtuoso performer.
Right. But modern misinformation, a lot of the time, it feels more passive. It works by exploiting the audience's built-in cognitive wiring. The person spreading it doesn't necessarily need Gorgias's level of poetic enchantment. Why? Because our own minds have these like pre-installed vulnerabilities that can be easily triggered.
The system leverages our own biases against us.
Precisely. It's a bypass. Instead of convincing you with eloquence, the system just pushes buttons that are already there. I mean, just think about the sheer volume of stuff online. We can't possibly evaluate everything critically.
Information overload is real.
Totally. So our brains take shortcuts, heuristics, and disinformation campaigns are designed to exploit exactly that. They mimic the look and feel of legitimate sources, logos, website layouts to slip past our critical filters.
Like a wolf in sheep's clothing.
Kind of. But even more powerful, maybe, is confirmation bias. We're just wired to accept information that confirms what we already believe and to share it, often without even checking.
And the platforms amplify this.
Massively. It creates this potent feedback loop. Belief leads to exposure. Exposure reinforces belief. It's a self-contained echo chamber, sometimes just inside our own heads. And then there's the emotional angle, which Gorgias talked about, but maybe differently.
Yeah, the type of emotion seems different online.
Right. Research shows again and again that content triggering strong, high arousal, negative emotions, anger, fear, outrage, disgust, is way more likely to be believed and shared.
It grabs attention. Engagement fuel.
Exactly. Gorgias's logos could create a whole spectrum: pity, joy, longing. But the digital ecosystem seems to structurally favor this narrower, much more volatile band of negative affect.
Because the algorithms are optimizing for engagement, right? Not for truth or nuance or even positive feelings necessarily, just engagement. Clicks, shares, comments.
And outrage delivers that reliably. So inflammatory content gets structurally incentivized. And one more piece here, social identity. This is something Gorgias is speaking to a relatively unified Athenian audience probably didn't grapple with in the same way.
Our hyper-polarized world changes the game.
Completely. In polarized online spaces, sharing information isn't just about sharing facts or even opinions. It's often a performance.
Signaling group membership.
Exactly. It's about signaling allegiance to your group, or maybe dissing the other group. People might even share stuff they suspect isn't true just to show which side they're on.
There's that GBN model group membership, beliefs, and novelty.
Right. Information gets valued and spread if it ticks those boxes, comes from my group, confirms my beliefs, and feels new or urgent.
So sharing becomes less about epistemology, what's true, and much more about social signaling. Who are we? And maybe the biggest departure from Gorgias is this. The human orator, the skilled speaker, is largely displaced, or at least their role is diminished. In the digital age, the system itself becomes the primary architect of persuasion.
The platform, the algorithm.
Precisely. Information goes viral, often without any real gatekeeping, until maybe after it's already spread widely. The true dunastēs megas today isn't a person, it's the platform's algorithm.
And that algorithm shapes our reality through things like echo chambers and filter bubbles.
Yes. It personalizes your feed based on what you've clicked on, liked, shared before. So it creates these informational environments where you mostly see stuff that reinforces what you already think. You're shielded from dissenting views. This idea of the daily me, once a prediction, is now just a structural reality built into the code. The algorithm is the gatekeeper, the ultimate arbiter, and it often ends up amplifying extreme views and dividing society. And it's crucial to remember why it does this. These algorithms are not designed to promote truth or civic health or nuanced debate.
Their prime directive is
User engagement. Keep you on the platform longer. Maximize ad revenue. And often, the easiest way to do that is to serve up emotionally charged, polarizing content. Remember that internal meta study? Found their own algorithms were responsible for something like 64% of people joining extremist groups on the platform.
wow.
So the rhetorical skill, the persuasive art, it's been automated. It's embedded right into the system's code. The platform itself is the master sophist. Its speech is your personalized feed. It's a persuasive artifact on an unprecedented scale.
And it works differently than Gorgias' speech.
I think so. It often seems to operate on a more primal level. Gorgias targeted doxa, opinions, beliefs, cognitive constructs. But a lot of digital misinformation seems to trigger immediate effective responses, fear, anger, and these identity-based reflexes before you even form a coherent belief about it. It's almost like persuasion of the nervous system, not just the soul.
And beyond the algorithms, the actual content, the rhetorical strategies people use online, have evolved too. Modern divisive movements, like, say, the alt-right, developed specific playbooks tailored for the digital world. They're different from classical oratory.
Right, it's not about long, structured speeches.
No, one strategy is this kind of pseudo-intellectual veneer, framing ideology with appeals to science or realism or logic, positioning themselves as brave truth-tellers, pushing back against political correctness.
It's kind of rhetorical cover.
Yeah, a rhetorical bridge, as some analysts call it, to make otherwise extreme ideas seem more palatable, more intellectually grounded. It mimics that sophistic claim to superior insight, but the goal is ideological recruitment. They also seem to thrive on contradictions, saying provocative things, maybe things they don't even fully believe, just to get a reaction, to troll.
And hijacking language.
Yes, using the language of their opponents against them. Like using civil rights language to argue for white identity politics. It's designed to confuse, to muddy the waters, to disarm critics.
And then there are memes.
Oh, memes. Probably the most potent new rhetorical form. They're perfectly adapted to the digital environment.
Short, visual, emotional, shareable.
Exactly. They distill complex, sometimes really complicated issues down into these simple, instantly graspable, emotionally resonant packages. Their power isn't logical argument. It's humor, satire, repetition, and just sheer speed of transmission.
They build community for the in-group.
And hostility towards the out-group. They erode nuance. They're like these little effective packets designed to be felt and passed on, completely bypassing any kind of classical argumentation.
Okay, so maybe it helps to crystallize this. If we connect this to the bigger picture, we can see some key differences between Gorgian persuasion and digital misinformation. Let's tick them off. Agent of persuasion. For Gorgias, it's the singular skilled orator, digitally. It's diffuse, users, bots, and centrally the algorithm.
Got it. Order versus the system.
Medium and context. Gorgias.live, spoken performance, synchronous, digital, asynchronous, networked, multimedia text, image, video, meme.
Public speech versus networked content. Okay.
Core mechanism. Gorgias relied on artful argument, poetic language, displaying skill. Digital relies on triggering emotions, exploiting cognitive biases, repetition, algorithmic amplification, social proof, everyone sharing this.
Eloquence versus exploitation and amplification.
Yeah. Target faculty. Gorgias aimed at the soul's susceptibility to compelling speech, shaping doxa opinion. Digital often targets precognitive biases, immediate emotional reflexes, group identity, just capturing attention.
Shaping belief versus triggering reflexes.
And finally, telos, the goal. Gorgias aimed for persuasion, maybe exoneration, like with Helen, demonstrating his own skill. Digital often aims for disruption, polarization, mobilizing groups, ideological capture, or simply commercial profit through engagement.
Persuasion versus polarization and profit.
Yeah. So looking at it like that, it confirms that just slapping the Gorgias label onto everything today isn't quite right. The agents, the mechanisms, the goals, they've all been transformed.
That doesn't mean Gorgias is useless now.
Not at all. It just means we need to be more sophisticated. We can reapply his core ideas, like the dunastēs megas or the pharmakon, not to the individual troll, perhaps, but to the architecture of the system itself. But to really grasp why the system is so effective, why people get drawn into these alternative realities, we might need an even more radical philosophical lens, something that goes beyond just persuasion or deception.
Okay, so this idea of negative production someone asked about,
Yeah.
it points towards a really different and honestly pretty challenging philosophical framework. We're talking Gilles Deleuze and Félix Guattari and their work Anti-Oedipus, particularly their idea of schizoanalysis.
Right. Not an easy read, but incredibly insightful for our times.
Definitely. They start by critiquing the traditional view of desire, the Freudian or Hegelian idea, which sees desire as basically a lack, a manque.
Like you desire what you don't have, an emptiness waiting to be filled.
Exactly, a longing for a missing object. And Deleuze and Guattari argued this whole framework makes desire negative, reactive, always defined by what's absent.
So what's their alternative?
They proposed desiring production. Desire isn't a lack, it's not a void. It's a positive, productive, overflowing force. It doesn't long for reality, it generates reality itself. They imagine the unconscious not as a, quiet theater playing out family dramas.
The Freudian model.
Right, but as a noisy factory floor, constantly making connections, hooking things up, producing flows, assemblages, their big claim. Everything is production. Desire produces reality, and this happens through what they call desiring machines. And they insist these are not metaphors.
They mean literal processes.
Yeah, literal material processes of connection and interruption. A desiring machine is basically a coupling of one thing processing a flow from another. Their example, the mouth machine connecting to the mother's breast, which is producing a flow of milk. The mouth interrupts that flow, draws it off, consumes it.
Okay, so it's about connections and flows.
Exactly. Reality, for them, is just this vast interconnected network of these desiring machines, constantly coupling, producing, breaking down. And desire is the machine. Its object is always another machine it connects to. It's a fundamentally positive generative process.
And here's the crucial leap for understanding society. They argue that this desiring production isn't separate from social production. It's not like you have individual desires over here and society over there. They are, in fact, the same process, just viewed at different scales.
So the factory in my head connects to the factory of society.
Kind of. They say there are no desiring machines that exist outside the social machines that they form on a large scale, and no social machines without the desiring machines that inhabit them on a small scale. A whole social field, a tribe, an empire, capitalism is just a vast assemblage of these desiring machines. It's what they call a socius, a social body that organizes and directs these flows of desire.
So society doesn't just, repress our desires.
That's the standard view, right? Society holds desire in check. But Deleuze and Guattari flip that. They argue a social system's main function isn't repression, but the production of desire itself, and then coding its flows, channeling them to sustain the social order. Capitalism, for instance, is incredibly powerful because it decodes older ways of organizing desire, like loyalty to a king, connection to land, and recodes everything onto a new system, an axiomatic, based on flows of money and abstract labor. And this framework gives them a radical answer to Wilhelm Reich's famous, haunting question. Why do the masses seem to desire their own oppression? Why do people sometimes fight passionately for their own servitude?
The usual answers are things like false consciousness, or they're being tricked or repressed.
Right. And Deleuze and Guattari find those answers totally insufficient. They don't explain the passion, the investment people have in oppressive systems. Their schizoanalytic answer is that social systems aren't just imposed from the outside. They are actively invested with libidinal energy, with our desires from within.
We want this system in some way.
We invest our desire in the social machine because it gives us something back. It provides identities, a sense of belonging, structure, intensity, even if that structure is ultimately subjugating. Think about fascism. They argue it wasn't just a bad ideology people were tricked into. It was a specific organization of desire, a powerful desiring machine that affects feelings of purity, national power, belonging, even a kind of ecstatic self-destruction. People desired fascism on some level.
Okay, wow. So how does this connect back to misinformation? If we apply this desiring production lens, well, suddenly misinformation doesn't look like just a lack of truth or a deficit of facts or simply a poison corrupting a pure system. Instead, it becomes a positive, productive process. It's a form of desiring production.
It's building something.
Exactly. Misinformation ecosystems, think about QAnon or anti-vax groups or sovereign citizen movements. These are social machines. They are factories. What do they produce? They produce specific affects: outrage, vindication, fear, the thrill of secret knowledge. They produce identities: the patriot, the digital soldier, the truth seeker, and maybe most importantly, they produce strong community bonds, a sense of belonging. So from this perspective, an alternative fact isn't primarily a failed attempt to represent the existing world. It's a successful production of a different world, a world where the subject's desires may be for coherence in a chaotic reality, for agency when they feel powerless, for belonging when they feel alienated, are more satisfyingly met.
So people aren't just passive victims being tricked.
Not entirely. They are actively investing their desire into these alternative realities because those realities do something for them. They fulfill certain desires. For someone feeling lost or marginalized, a complex conspiracy theory isn't just a set of false claims to be debunked point by point. It's a powerful desiring machine. It offers a narrative, a world remade with clear enemies, a grand cosmic purpose, a community of fellow initiates. It produces a reality that feels effectively charged, libidinally compelling. It meets a need. And this loops back beautifully, I think, to Gorgias's materialist view of the soul and his skepticism. Deleuze and Guattari talk about a plane of immanence. There's no transcendent truth up above, no separate realm of perfect forms like Plato thought. There's just this one plane, this material reality where everything is constantly being produced.
Flows and connections.
Right. So misinformation isn't an error measured against some external higher truth. It's an immanent production happening on the very same plane as what we call truth.
Which explains why fact-checking often feels ineffective.
Exactly. Fact-checking operates by trying to correct a representation, assuming a shared standard of reality. But if someone is deeply invested, libidinally invested, in a different production of reality,
then the fact check is just noise from another system.
Right. It's using the rules of one reality production game to critique another. It completely misses the powerful libidinal investment that makes the alternative production feel so real, so necessary, so desirable to the person inside it. And thinking about polarization this way, it's profound. It's not just about people disagreeing on facts or policies anymore.
It's a clash of worlds.
It's a fundamental conflict between rival modes of social production, each organizing desire differently, each producing a different kind of reality, a different kind of subject. One machine produces reality based on, say, scientific consensus, liberal democracy, institutional trust. Another produces reality based on national identity, maybe charismatic authority, conspiratorial thinking.
And the poison of the pharmakon in this view.
The poison isn't just the lie itself. It's how one desiring machine's productions threaten to disrupt, decode, or maybe even annihilate the productions of another. The conflict is fundamentally over the production of the world itself.
Okay, so we've established that just saying Gorgias equals troll doesn't really work. The singular orator model breaks down. But, and this is the crucial pivot, this doesn't mean we discard Gorgias. Far from it. A really productive way to reapply his insights emerges when we shift our focus. The orator, the master sophist of our time, isn't the individual user posting falsehoods.
It's the system.
It's the entire socio-technical system, the social media platform itself, and its key persuasive tool, the algorithmically curated feed. That is the new encomium of Helen, a constantly unfolding, personalized masterwork of persuasion operating at a global scale.
Okay, so the system is the sophist.
Exactly. And if we view it that way, suddenly Gorgias's core concepts snap back into sharp focus. Think about dunastēs megas, the pharmakon, the mastery of doxa. They become startlingly relevant again, but applied to the system's architecture. Remember, Gorgias described logos as a dunastēs megas, a mighty power working through an invisible body.
Yeah, that phrase really stuck with me.
Can you think of a better description for the social media algorithm? It's this immense, largely invisible power. We don't see the code, mostly, but it actively shapes the reality of billions of people every day. It structures our interactions, shapes our emotions, controls our access to information.
And its speech is the feed.
Its speech is your personalized, unending stream of content. A bespoke oration tailored just for you, an audience of one, but repeated and refined millions of times per second across the user base.
That's a level of persuasive power Gorgias couldn't have conceived of.
Unimaginable. This new algorithmic sophist possesses a rhetorical skill, a techner, that makes Gorgias look like an amateur. Its art isn't elegant prose, it's sophisticated code, complex recommendation engines, predictive models, all relentlessly optimized for one single goal.
Engagement.
Engagement. It learns and adapts its persuasive strategy in real time for every single user. Every element on the platform, the layout, the notification timing, the content recommendations is a rhetorical device, honed through analyzing billions of data points. It's arguably the most effective, most persuasive orator in human history.
Wow. Okay, so if the algorithm is the sophist, what about the pharmakon, the drug metaphor? Does that still hold up for the content it serves? Seems even more potent, maybe, if we look at it systemically. Yeah, the pharmakon metaphor gains this chilling precision. The algorithm feed is like a delivery system, administering a constant, highly personalized dose of a powerful drug to every single user, all day long.
And it's still ambivalent, remedy or poison.
Absolutely. Fundamentally ambivalent, just like Gorgias said. For one person, that feed might be a remedy. It connects them to supportive friends, gives them vital news, affirms their identity, brings them joy, or moves them to pity. But for another person, the exact same system, operating by the exact same logic, can administer a potent poison.
The rabbit hole effect.
Right. A few clicks on, say, some transphobic jokes or maybe a weird conspiracy theory, and the algorithm learns this, gets engagement, it serves more. The user gets pulled down a rabbit hole into extremism, radicalization. The platform itself becomes the delivery mechanism. And here's the really disturbing part, systemically speaking. From the algorithm's point of view, is there a difference between remedy and poison?
Not if both drive engagement.
Exactly. The system is largely indifferent. Content can be a remedy for Group A, affirming their identity, and a poison for Group B, stoking their outrage. But if both outcomes lead to more clicks, more shares, more time on site,
then it's a win for the system either way.
Right. The fundamental undecidability of the pharmakon, its capacity for opposite effects, isn't a flaw in the system. It's a core feature of a business model that's built on maximizing emotional arousal, regardless of the social consequences.
And this goes beyond just persuading someone of an idea.
I think so. It moves beyond persuasion towards addiction. Gorgias talked about speech that could drug and bewitch the soul to make someone believe something, like Helen's innocence. The digital pharmakon often seems less interested in making you believe any specific thing and more interested in keeping you hooked on the drug itself.
The cycle of scrolling, reacting, sharing.
Yes, the content is just the vehicle. The real product being delivered is the emotional jolt, the hit of dopamine from validation, the thrill of novelty, the satisfying rush of outrage. Specific truths or falsehoods almost become secondary to the primary goal, modulating your affective state to ensure compulsive engagement.
That's a much deeper level of control.
It feels like it. It's not just shaping your opinion. It's like colonizing your nervous system for commercial profit.
And this system is the absolute master of doxa, isn't it? The realm of opinion, belief, preference, affect. It operates almost exclusively there. Why? Because establishing episteme, genuine knowledge, is slow, difficult, requires effort, nuance.
And it's less profitable.
Yeah.
Less engaging.
Much less engaging. The platform's whole architecture is like a giant technological embodiment of Gorgian skepticism. Remember his argument, ultimate truth isn't accessible, so the real power lies in shaping opinion. Well, social media platforms have built a multi-trillion-dollar reality based on exactly that premise.
They give you what you want to hear.
They excel at giving you what you already know, or rather what their prediction algorithms think you want to see based on your past behavior, your data profile. It connects back to that Gorgian insight. To tell an audience what it knows wins belief but gives no pleasure. Or maybe in the digital context, it gives the deep addictive pleasure of confirmation bias, that little hit of, yes, I knew it.
And it avoids challenging you too much.
Right. The algorithm rarely surfaces content that directly challenges your core beliefs, your personal doom. Why? Because that causes cognitive dissonance. It feels bad. It risks you disengaging, closing the app. Instead, it works constantly on that malleable wax of your opinions, your doxa, reinforcing them, hardening them, solidifying them into this coherent, self-validating bubble. The unspoken philosophy of the digital public square feels purely Gorgian. There's no stable, objective reality to represent anyway, so let's just focus on artfully arranging the flow of appearances doxa to achieve the desired effect, which is stickiness, engagement.
Okay, so if we tie this systemic view back to Deleuze and Guattari, this algorithmic sophist, this platform system, isn't just deceiving users with bad information. That frame feels too simple now.
It's doing something more fundamental.
It's actively producing their reality. The algorithmic feed is this incredibly powerful desiring machine. And it plugs into the user's own desiring production. It offers flows of images, effects, connections, identities that the user's own internal factories can connect to, creating this circuit of continuous, often satisfying production.
Which completely reframes the problem.
Totally. It's just the focus away from just blaming individuals for being gullible or morally failing. How could they fall for that lie? And it moves us towards a systemic political analysis. What kind of reality is this system designed to produce? What desires is it mobilizing, channeling, and exploiting? Whose interests does this production serve?
It suggests the real power isn't in the lie itself.
No. The real momentum of misinformation, especially the persistent stuff, comes not from the specific content of the falsehood, but from the systemic production of a world where that falsehood feels true, feels necessary, feels desirable. The algorithm isn't just persuading the soul like Gorgias' orator, it's actively engineering it.
So where does this leave us? I think this whole journey from Gorgias to the algorithm to Deleuze and Guattari really highlights why our standard responses to misinformation often fall short. The most common, and I think persistently flawed response, is what's called the deficit model in public communication.
The idea that people believe false things simply because they lack the right facts.
Exactly. It assumes the problem is just a lack of information, and the solution is simply to provide more facts, more data, better explanations, fill the deficit.
Seems logical on the surface.
It does, but it's based on this, frankly, platonic fantasy of a rational public, calmly weighing evidence, seeking episteme. But everything we've discussed today, from Gorgias' effective logos operating on doxa to Deleuze and Guattari's desiring production, it tells us persuasion isn't primarily rational. It's an effective material process happening on the shifting sands of opinion, and it's fueled by deep libidinal investments.
So throwing facts at someone deeply invested in a different reality.
It's like, as one source put it, offering a nutritional brochure to someone in the grip of a powerful drug.
It doesn't address the underlying mechanism.
Precisely. The intervention fails because it ignores why the poison is so compelling, why the alternative reality feels so necessary to that person. It doesn't address the desiring machines at work.
Okay, so if the deficit model is flawed, what about fact-checking? You're not saying it's useless, are you?
Yeah.
No, not useless. Fact-checking is valuable. Studies do show it can reduce belief in specific false claims, at least for some people, some of the time. It has a role. But its efficacy is limited, especially against these deeper systemic forces we've been talking about. Fact checks operate mostly at the level of individual content items. They don't and can't really address the underlying architecture of algorithmic amplification or the libidinal investments people have.
And in that chaotic realm of doxa online,
A fact check can just appear as one more competing claim in the feed, easily dismissed, especially if it threatens someone's identity or worldview. Oh, that's just the mainstream media or whatever.
so we need something more.
I think we need a fundamentally new kind of media literacy, one that goes way beyond the simple checklists for spotting fake news. You know, check the URL, look for bad grammar. That stuff is helpful, but insufficient. True critical literacy for today needs a deep structural understanding of the architecture of persuasion itself.
Understanding the machine.
Yes, understanding the political economy of the attention industry, how recommendation algorithms actually function, the psychology of echo chambers and filter bubbles, how platform design choices shape public discourse. It's a shift from just looking at the content
to analyzing the system.
So how do we counter this effectively? How do we build trust when reality itself seems up for grabs? One really productive strategy comes from the field of science and technology studies, STS. It's about making the networks of production visible.
Explain that a bit more.
Instead of just asserting authority, this is a scientific fact, believe it. An STS-informed approach focuses on explaining the process. How did we come to know this? What were the experiments, the debates, the peer review processes, the replication studies, the messy work that eventually led to a stable consensus? It means opening up the black box of science or any knowledge production and showing that its reliability comes from the robustness of its process, its networks, not from some magical insight.
Okay, so apply that to misinformation.
We need to turn that same analytic lens onto alternative facts. The crucial question isn't just, is this specific claim true or false? Although that matters. The deeper questions are, who produced this alternative reality? What networks of funding, of political actors, of media platforms sustain this production? For what purpose? What desires does it mobilize? What effects does it generate? What identities does it offer?
That sounds like a truly Gorgian and Deleuzian analysis.
Exactly. It takes persuasion and reality production seriously as material processes. It equips you not just to debunk a single lie, but to deconstruct the entire machinery behind any given reality production project.
So, thinking about it this way, a sophisticated understanding of Gorgias, far from leading us into some kind of post-truth relativism.
It does the opposite.
It actually provides the sharpest tools to dismantle those very arguments.
Yeah.
By taking logos, language, seriously as a material, world-building force, a pharmakon, we become much better equipped to recognize, analyze, and ultimately resist its contemporary machinic forms, like the algorithms that shape our feeds.
Ignoring the power of rhetoric is dangerous.
It's a profound strategic error. It's like unilaterally disarming ourselves, just ceding the most powerful human tool we have, this double-edged sword, the pharmakon of speech, entirely to those who have mastered its use as poison. The challenge isn't to somehow escape rhetoric and reach a mythical land of pure objective fact. As Gorgias might say, that's likely impossible anyway.
So what is the task?
The task is to cultivate a new, more powerful, more critical rhetoric. A rhetoric grounded in systemic awareness. A rhetoric demanding transparency. A rhetoric built on a deep understanding of the psychological forces, the technological architectures, and the political economies that are constantly producing our shared and increasingly contested reality.
We need to become better pharmacologists.
Exactly. We must become better pharmacologists of the digital age. We need the skill to distinguish the remedy from the poison in the constant flow of information. And we need the wisdom to administer the former while inoculating ourselves and hopefully our communities against the latter. #outro. Wow. Well, what a journey we've taken today on AI history of Western philosophy. That really covered some ground. We started with the ancient Sophist Gorgias, unpacking his radical insights into language as this mighty, ambivalent drug, the pharmakon, and saw how surprisingly that resonates today. Then we brought in Deleuze and Guattari to help us see misinformation, maybe not just as a lack of truth, but as a positive, productive force, creating alternative realities fueled by, well, our own desires.
Yeah, that productive aspect is key.
And finally, we brought it back to Gorgias, but applied systemically. Seeing today's algorithmic systems as maybe the ultimate sophists, engineering our experiences, maybe even our souls, with this constant, personalized digital pharmakon.
This raises an important question, I think, for you, for all of us listening. Consider this. If our digital world, these platforms, these algorithms are constantly producing realities and constantly organizing our desires, what realities are you actively investing your desire in, maybe without even realizing it? How can we move beyond just reacting to the latest outrageous post or alarming headline, and instead start cultivating the critical literacy needed to understand and maybe even begin to shape the very mechanisms that construct our shared world?
That's definitely something to chew on. Thank you so much for joining us on AI History of Western Philosophy. We really hope this exploration has given you some new perspectives, maybe some powerful new tools for navigating the incredibly complex flows of information all around us. Until next time, keep questioning, keep learning, and keep diving deep into the fascinating and sometimes unsettling world of philosophy.